At home, governments must protect the interest of children orphaned by COVID-19. Disasters may bring out the innate generosity of people, but sometimes even well-intentioned initiatives may go wrong. Many believe that children orphaned by calamities are free for adoption and that growing with well-off adoptive parents will give them a shot at a better life than they can get from impoverished surviving relatives. However, adoption can be an option only when the children's safety and welfare can be ensured. By ordering that no adoption of children orphaned since last year should be permitted contrary to the Juvenile Justice Act 2015, the Supreme Court has made one more benign intervention to mitigate the fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic. It had earlier passed various orders on the economic and health aspects of the pandemic, including those aimed at the protection of migrant workers, prisoners, and jail staff and the people at large. When its attention was drawn to advertisements and messages inviting people to adopt children who have lost one or both parents to COVID-19, the court warned that no such adoption could be permitted without the involvement of the Central Adoption Resource Authority. It is important that the order is adhered to, as past experience shows that the danger of children falling victim to traffickers under the guise of adoption is ever present. Even when they reach the hands of genuine adoptive parents, there is a possibility that they will be uprooted out of their social and cultural milieu through inter-country adoptions without the option of growing up with a relative or adoptive parents closer home being explored. Many may recall that following the December 2004 tsunami, there were ill-advised campaigns calling upon the people to adopt children rendered orphans in several Asian countries. It took a while for some affected countries to wake up to the reality that lax enforcement of adoption have led to child trafficking in some cases. In the present situation, it appears that the Union Government and the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights are quite alive to the problem. The NCPCR is collecting details of children affected by the pandemic from all state governments and the administration of union territories. It has drawn the Supreme Court's attention to public announcements by some unscrupulous agencies inviting interested people to adopt the children and also disclosing the children's identities. The court's order asking all authorities to prevent illegal adoptions and fund collection in the names of the affected children came in response to this. The court has also passed orders for the continuance of the children's education and other steps to coordinate the implementation of schemes in their favor. These orders are necessary reminder to the authorities that they have a special responsibility to protect the interest and welfare of children in times like this. Encouraging accord. The political will shown by G7 to ensure fairness in revenue sharing is a good augury. The finance ministers of the G7 nations appear to have heeded the advice to never let the good crisis go to waste. And they agreed last week to set a global minimum tax of at least 15%, with the COVID-19 pandemic having caused the world economy to shrink by an estimated 3.5% in 2020 and forced most countries to dip into their coffers to mitigate the fallout. The seven richest nations opted to use the opportune moment to plug a key loophole in the international tax regime. In a communique, the G7 ministers stressed that as part of efforts to secure a safe and prosperous future for all, they would strongly back the broader efforts underway through the G20 or OECD to address tax challenges arising from globalization and digitalization of the economy. The rapid and relentless march of technology's advancement, especially in the domain of global communications and connectivity, has resulted in a world economy where the digital sphere, estimated in 2016 at $11.5 trillion or over one-sixth of global GDP, is exponentially outpacing overall economic growth. The increasing digitalization has, however, exacerbated the challenges to taxing multinational corporations, which have sought to minimize their total tax outgo by recognizing a bulk of their revenue in low tax jurisdictions. The OECD, which is with the G20 spearheading the inclusive framework on base erosion and profit shifting initiative aimed at ending tax avoidance, estimates that countries are collectively deprived of as much as $240 billion in tax revenue annually due to avoidance by MNCs. As the OECD's Secretary General noted in a statement welcoming the G7 deal, such distortions can only be effectively addressed through a multilaterally agreed solution. The G7 also agreed on an equitable allocation of taxing rights, with market countries awarded taxing rights on at least 20% of profit exceeding a 10% margin for the largest and most profitable multinational enterprises. For India, estimated to be losing more than $10 billion in revenue each year to global tax abuse by MNCs, according to the Tax Justice Network and one of the more than 90 countries that have joined the BEPS framework. A wider agreement at next month's meeting of G20 finance ministers and central bank governors could have far reaching implications. India could benefit from the levy of taxes on MNCs, including technology and internet economy giants, which have taken advantage of the loopholes in the global tax system. While there are still wrinkles to be ironed out, including the issue of local levies on digital transactions, the political will to ensure greater fairness and equity in revenue sharing is a positive augury.